You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, themichigansportstruthpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like and share our verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also listen to us on Spreaker, CastBox, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, and Spotify. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them.
And welcome to another episode of the independent edition of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at Periscope and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Got two teams to follow, Tigers and Pistons. Let's get to Tigers first and foremost.
That one is long gone!
Last evening, I tweeted out at Michigan_Truth and asked if someone can talk with someone outside or inside the Tigers organization about Chris Ilitch's ownership contract and when it expires. And then minutes later, I received a tweet reply from Justin Spiro at the Spiro Avenue podcast, whom you can follow on Twitter at Darko State News. And he said he spoke with Chris himself, and Chris told Justin that his contract doesn't expire. That means his contract doesn't have an expiration date, meaning it never expires. And chances are he may not sell the Tigers franchise anytime soon. My crystal ball is telling me that the worst case scenario is that Ilitch will in fact not address any issues the Tigers are having and instead run the franchise to the ground permanently, but not shut it down. I'll get to that last part, that shutting it down part, a little bit later on. Now let's go down memory lane here. In time, as we all know, as fans, the Tigers have won four World Series championships in 1935, 1945, 1968, and 1984, which was all they have won. Since then, no rings. The Ilitch family, later on, at its entirety, bought the Tigers organization in August of 1992, meaning they didn't own the Tigers until the month of that year, meaning the Ilitches did not own the Tigers when they won any of those four championships before August of 1992. Since August of 1992, the Tigers, under the Ilitches, never won any World Series championships. Sure, they've won 4 straight AL Central Division titles and 2 American League championships, but in 2 World Series appearances combined, the Tigers won only one game, just one. Also taking in historic consideration, they've had to go through plenty of losing seasons, starting in 1992, where they've only won 75 games, and then from 1994 through 2005, and then 2008, then 2010, and then from 2017 through right now. The Ilitches had Randy Smith starting off as their general manager from 1994 through 2001, actually, which were evidently all losing seasons. In 96, the Tigers lost 109 games, which was the highest amount and worst record in the majors. The Tigers then hired Dave Dombrowski after 1991 to start off the 02 season as general manager. In 2003, they lost 119 games, which was the worst in the majors, and 10 games worse than 1996, if you do the math. From 2003, they started to improve from 2004 to 2006 to become American League champions in 2006 for the first time since 1984, when they last won a World Series championship. But in 2006, they failed to do so as they got dominated by the then underdog St. Louis Cardinals in 5 games. Since then, they started tailing off from a winning season in 2007 when they somehow failed to make the MLB postseason, to a losing season in 2008. In 2009, they had a winning season, but in the end, they choked away a 7-game division lead and lost on the road in Game 163 in extra innings to the Minnesota Twins.
You blew it!
In 2010, they had another losing season. From 2011 to 2014, they won 4 consecutive AL Central Division titles and only one AL championship in 2012, when they later got swept by the upstart San Francisco Giants.
You are pathetic!
2013 was another promising year, except they choked away 2 critical grand slams at Fenway Park in Games 2 and 6.
You blew it!
And lost to the Boston Red Sox in 6 games. Manager Jim Nealon after that retired, and the Tigers hired Dartmouth Ivy League manager Brad Ausmus and mistakenly kept him from 2014 to 2017.
You stupid.
In 2014, they started falling apart. They still won the division that year, but due to Ausmus's in-game decision-making ineptitude and lack of communication with his players and assistant coaches, the Tigers got swept by the Baltimore Orioles in a 3-game ALDS series. Since then, the Tigers have failed to make the playoffs. They fell just 1 game short of a wild card berth in 2016, while in 2015 and from 2017 through the present, they have tanked, while Mike Ilitch passed away in early 2017, leaving his lame son Chris Ilitch, the new and current controlling owner of the Tigers and Red Wings. Ausmus was finally fired way too late at the end of 2017, and then they brought former Twins manager Ron Gardenhire out of retirement and hired him as a manager to start the 2018 season. In his past, Gardenhire had won multiple AL Central Division titles with the Twins through the late 2000s, except he and his team kept losing in the ALDS, and then in the 20-teens, the Twins started sinking, and then they finally fired him, Gardenhire, after 2014. So this is where the Tigers are right now. Back to the dark ages of baseball yet again. After only a few failed attempts to win a World Series ring since 1984, while the Red Wings were winning 4 Stanley Cups in our lifetime in totality, the Tigers are back to tanking for draft picks after selling for pennies on the dollar. Chris Ilitch may have already shown signs that he does not care about the Tigers, while he proves by firing Ken Holland as general manager and replacing him with Steve Yzerman that he cares about the Red Wings. The Tigers are going nowhere with Chris. Now, I was told from Jeff Moss of the Detroit Sports Rag on my latest Periscope from a bit earlier today that baseball teams don't get shut down, meaning the Tigers won't be shut down, which is also because they have their newest stadium called Comerica Park. From my own estimation, the Tigers don't even nearly have the affordability to relocate to another city in another state. By the way, you can follow Jeff Moss of the Detroit Sports Rag on Periscope at Barbrady McCoskey and on Twitter at JeffMoss91. The Tigers are stuck in Detroit, Michigan. The good thing about that is the state of Michigan still has an MLB team in Detroit. The bad thing is that team will only keep losing every season and never improve. In other words, to sum it all up, the Tigers organization will be forever stuck in hell unless Chris Ilitch sells them, because he's just not a good baseball owner, unlike his sense of urgency as owner of the Detroit Red Wings NHL team.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
According to ESPN NBA analyst Adrian Wojnarowski on Twitter at WojESPN, the Pistons have agreed with free agent guard Derrick Rose on a 2-year, $15 million contract. Rose had good offensive numbers last year. He averaged around 18 points per game primarily. My question is, can he prove how good he is defensively? Only time will tell. Another reminder that the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is also prime time on Blog Talk Radio under Mancini Sports on the Stables Network. Listen online at blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports. And if anyone is interested in sponsoring our primetime edition on the Stables Network, please email our fine producer, Mark Mancini, at mancinisports@yahoo.com. Check out our new website, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast.com. Like its verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and follow its Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. Stay smart, Michiganders. TTFN, ta-ta for now. And hit them with a hind.
The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them.
And mission complete.